everyone, and welcome to On the Red Couch. My name is Makaita Gombe, and I will be your host. Today, we are going to discuss a topic in global health that's usually invisible but affects everyone, and that is market shaping. And we're speaking specifically to the project that was funded by United called IMPAACT4TB that brought short course TB preventive therapy to the market. As you know, at the time, we've always had long treatment regimens, specifically INH that lasted for 6, 9, 12, or 36 months. And because of that, people did not largely finish treatment, and therefore people were not protected from TB. So this project was designed to bring in shorter treatment regimens that were also less toxic in order for people to actually finish treatments. So I have two guests today that are going to help me unpack what exactly happened behind the scenes in order to bring the products that we're discussing to market. So I have Cherise from United, from the strategy team in TB. Welcome, Cherise. And then I also have Aman Siwach from Chai, who led some of the negotiations with the manufacturers and brought different generic manufacturers. Welcome, Aman.
Thank you.
All right, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Cherise to give us a brief introduction of what you do and why this project mattered to begin with.
Okay. Thank you, Maka. This is a great opportunity, and we thank you for the privilege for being on this podcast. So I've been in TB for 25 years. I've been at Unitate for 8 years. So I was actually coming on board when you were just starting. And so really seeing the project's evolution over these last years has been wonderful. And I've been in the product development space for a long time, looking at from preclinical to getting products in market for TB vaccines and medicines. So seeing what it takes really to get a product into access, into health systems, into where people need them. Mm-hmm. And so it's in the IMPAACT4TB project is a great example of how you bring all the pieces together, the market piece and so forth. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as you speak about that, you've been bringing medicines. Why this one in particular? What was the problem?
So, as we know, some of the bigger drivers of the TB pandemic is the transmission. And oftentimes, the best way to prevent TB is to catch those who are most at risk, those who are exposed to people who have TB, particularly those in the household and the families. And oftentimes, those are the people that are most at risk. And the tools that we've had in prevention, as you've mentioned, have been taken long time, and you're giving prevention to healthy people. And so that's always been a challenge for TB. So how do you convince people to take a medicine to prevent something that they feel they don't feel like they have? And how do you do that? So there were clinical trials coming forward that we saw was a promising regimen using rifapentine and isoniazid and given once a week for 3 months. And so we were like, this is an advancement, this is an innovation. And we know that countries and communities were desiring better prevention. And so the problem was that it was too expensive. Mm-hmm. And so what do? And Unitate is set up to solve these types of problems. And so we monitor the landscape, we look for the issues that are affecting those with TB and affecting the communities, affecting countries, and we ask what are the most promising solutions that could solve for problems on the ground. And 3HP was one of those solutions, but it wasn't getting to the countries that needed them. Mm-hmm. And so then what we do at Unitate is when we see an opportunity, we ask ourselves, what is the resources needed to potentially solve for that for that problem, or to carry forth the opportunity, and then we issue a call for proposals. And one of those proposals that came in was from the Orm Institute and the consortium around that. And we thought it a very great proposal because it brought together a multi-pronged approach, which we thought was needed. You can't just do just one thing to solve for this problem that we had at hand. It needed a market perspective, it needed some market interventions, it needed some policy interventions, it needed some regulatory interventions, it needed some on-the-ground community interventions, programmatic interventions. So that's what was needed, and that's what the project proposed, and Unite partnered with the project to make it happen. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for stating that, because I think there have been other interventions where we focus only on the product, and then there is no one to receive the product per se. So I think this was a good approach to look at it from a 360 angle. What is the evidence in order for people to actually take it? Therefore, what is the market intervention? Therefore, what is the demand generation, and how does it actually get implemented? So can you start us off with the actual intervention? Can you give us a little bit of a lay of the land of the market at the beginning of the project and some of the initial work that was done?
So at the beginning of the project, we had the evidence showing that 3HP was an effective regimen to prevent TB. Unfortunately, the rifapentine component, the product was only available from one manufacturer, Sanofi, and it was at a very high cost, higher for most interventions. For most interventions that come into the market, you have. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
For most interventions that come into the market, in order for them to be absorbed into the health system, you have to think about the cost and the added costs or cost savings or cost effectiveness to justify putting a new tool within a health system which has limited budget and has limited capabilities to absorb any new intervention. And at the time, 3HP was priced too high. Governments would not be able to afford it, particularly because prevention needs to be given to a large group, a large portion of the population, and much more than treatment. So in a sense, you're going to pay a lot more, and you only have limited resources. So we knew the price was too high. And then also the supply. If we were thinking about if prevention was to be scaled to the way that we knew it needed to be, we would need enough suppliers in the market to be able to meet that. And at the moment, Sanofi could not meet that supply. So that was some of the main challenges with the product itself.
Okay. All right. So then what did we do?
So we kind of, and this is kind of, I think, what's not seen during our kind of work with partners. So I remember a meeting when I first came. There was a new project director for the project, and also the partners involved like CHI and TAG, a treatment action group, and others. We were at a table for the project, and they were talking about the challenges, and the things that we were facing. And the idea was we started to brainstorm and say, okay, what is the real issue here? What are the things that we're having struggle right now? I think at the times, the Stop TB Partnerships Global Drug Facility had negotiated some reduction in price, but it wasn't sufficient. And we knew that. So then how do we get to that low price? And so what Unite did was we realized sometimes we bring projects in where we trust the implementers. We know they have the expertise and the knowledge base to do the work. But sometimes we need to be more heavily involved. And we really do pride ourselves on being thought partners with our projects. And working together with them. So that's what we try to do.
Okay.
and we did this in this case.
Okay.
And so we sat at the table, problem solved, and then Unitaid, we had, or we're building a negotiating relationship with Sanofi. And so we sat at the table with them, and then also engaged with the project, with our partners in the TB community, and tried to figure out what do we need now? What is the short-term strategy to solve for our problem now? Because if we don't solve for it now, there's no hope for us in the long term.
Absolutely.
And so our issue now was Sanofi. Oh, I don't want to say there was Sanofi, like Sanofi's listening. But our issue was, how do we come together and figure out this together? And we did that. I think we worked together. We figured out what they needed to at least get the price down to a level we could start scaling, which I believe was $15.
Yes.
For rifapentine and for that, and so that was a win. And sometimes you just need a win to get the momentum going, and then I will turn over you for the longer term strategy. But that was the initial thing that could get us going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I understand at the time the results then came out that we could use this in people living with HIV on the new molecule that was being used in people living with HIV at the time. And that influenced the PEPFAR decision making on what TB prevention they would fund for the cohorts that they were investing in. And there was an announcement from PEPFAR at the time that the maximum they would pay was 15. So did that also help your negotiations, having a signal from a donor that usually would buy large volumes to the manufacturer?
Yes, that helped a lot. Because sometimes you do need those signals. And like I said, this was a very challenge that we were facing. And one of the things that drives markets is volumes, as you mentioned. So we oftentimes leverage our scale-up partners like Global Fund or PEPFAR have the leveraging power to bring that signal to the market. And so oftentimes we do use that in market shaping to really kind of move that needle. And in this case, it worked really well.
All right. Thank you very much. It sounds like the African proverb that says one thumb doesn't crush lice. So you couldn't do it without the other thumb. So Aman, over to you. So once we had the Sanofi product at the right price, I believe there were still challenges because it was a smaller molecule. Patients needed to take 9 pills at a time. And I remember even with that first implementation, yes, we were down to 12 days and not 90 or 180, but there was still some concerns. Can you talk us through what else was done? Because now we know there are fewer pills that are being taken.
Yeah. Thanks, Maka, and thank you, Cherise, for giving us the complete background of how we went about it. And I must compliment on this specific project. Unitaid had a full thought-through strategy to really bring stakeholders from both ends together, both from the implementation side as well as the policy advocacy and, of course, the manufacturer's side. And that's essentially bringing market shaping. That's market shaping 101, bringing all the tools together, really identifying what the barriers to access are, and then solving each of those barriers. And I think what's commendable is that Unitaid did that with the best partner to solve for each of those barriers. So they didn't limit themselves to a single organization, and they looked at, we have these barriers listed out. We need to pick the best organizations and bring them together, and that's how Aurum, Chai, Tag, and so many other organizations, including partners like GDF, Global Fund, I+, who played a significant role there. Now, coming back to your question around the initial stages, because as Cherise mentioned, Sanofi product was rifapentine. So we went back to the generics on really working through a combination of rifapentine and isoniazid. And I think that development is is the key part where this became the in sorts innovator product because there wasn't a single pill available as 3HP, which was the combination of rifapentine and isoniazid. And then so that's how we reduced the number of pills to improve compliance of the product and acceptability even before the product was launched.
Okay. All right. So can you actually talk us through, because then the price was 15, but now we see the price is 951 if you look at the GDF catalog. So how did we manage to come down to that point? And I also understand that we have enough supply to supply to meet the demand. So how did we get to that point? Was it just the one generic that came in?
So, as a standard practice, how chai essentially functions is that we always do a competitive process. In this case, was not any different. We reached out to the largest TB generic manufacturers, TB products generic manufacturers, to incite excitement around this product, and we selected one supplier to start with, and of course, a healthy market has to have competition for sustainability and of course profitability. So to just bring all of those together, whilst we started with a single partner, we always had our sights on bringing in the second manufacturer, a step by step, also because we wanted visibility into the market. We had a demand forecast, but how much of that was realized? So as that realized, we brought in the second manufacturer to ensure there was competition, there was sustainability, and today I think we have sufficient capacity from more than 2 manufacturers to meet the complete market demand, even if there was a scale up from where we are today. And I think that that competition really drove the price points lower. And I have to say that, whilst Cherise was speaking, we had some slight interruptions.
Yes.
We had similar interruptions as we were navigating the IMPACT4TB project and working with the suppliers. I think faced with the biggest health emergency the world has seen, that is COVID, right at the start point of supply from one of the manufacturers, that is McLeod's, facing immense pressure on the economics of the entire deal and the project, but we navigated that through a very transparent and collaborative process, and which is why I feel that the structure of the project was so important, because it wasn't a transactional relationship with manufacturers. It was a very collaborative, transparent relationship, and we made sure that we sustained all of that, all of the injuries or all of the sounds or interruptions together, and maintained that price point at 15. I think that was the bigger challenge for the first 2 to 3 years, to maintain that price despite COVID interruptions and challenges around nitrosamine impurities, which of course led to changes in some development processes and overall COGS increases. But I have to commend both the manufacturers, McLeod's and Lupin, for their commitment to the cause and sticking with us through that process and not letting that $15 price being breached. And just the volumes thereafter just grew, the interest in the market, and economies of scale always applies. The development or the manufacturing of the API shifted from a third party to in-house, which led to significant price reductions. And I think, as you mentioned, we are almost at the $9 mark in some markets, and globally at 9.5, which is wonderful. And I see that price being sustained over a period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask about current global inflationary pressures, because we see this in all consumer goods markets with geopolitics. We've seen it in the supply chain costs actually associated even with this product, where post-COVID the supply chain costs have increased. But I think because the product itself remains stable in price. We've also been speaking to the procurement agents to try and ensure that the procurement costs remain stable. Otherwise, we might lose the gains there. But I note that we also have a pediatric formulation, which is flavored and dispersible. So can you talk about how that also came onto the market? And I believe it is the first TB molecule for children that is affordable, less than the adult product.
Yes, I think, as a principle, I think all the organizations altogether, but Chai, Aurum, Unitaid, they had a very clear focus that there needs to be a PEDS formulation right from day one. So we brought that in as a step 2 of our engagement with manufacturers. And like I said, I think manufacturers were as committed for making the pediatric formulation not only available, but also affordable. Okay. And as you rightly pointed, I think this is the first, potentially, to my best understanding, the first pediatric formulation which was launched at a price at that point in time lower than the adult formulation. And I have to commend Lupin and the team to do that because they were the first to market for the pediatric formulation.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we have discussed various market dynamics and therefore access dynamics, because now we have this product in over 106 countries. Over 12 million patient courses have been procured over the last 8 years. So thank you very much for your work. Any last words before we close?
I just want. I just would like to thank Orm, all Chai, all the TAG, the communities, all the partners involved. The project as a whole has just been incredible. And we use it as a case study for our work moving forward. There's still work to be done, but we have so much to build upon, and so much that has come out of this. Johns Hopkins as well, apologies, but all the partners involved. So just a big, big thank you from Unitaid.
All right. Thank you, Cherise. Aman, any last word?
Yeah, I mean, Cherise covered it, but as we have discussed and talking about what would you do differently on a project?
What would you do differently?
Right. I think this is a project we wouldn't do anything differently. And as Cherise mentioned, it is a case study because I think, multiple projects are successful, but this is a perfect example of bringing the entire ecosystem together, right? Like, I know we had challenges around supply chain, we had challenges around, there was at one time more demand than supply.
Yes.
And all the stakeholders really coming together, sitting in the room and really navigating that through and making sure that the product reached the consumer in time everywhere. That could not have been possible without a platform that was created and all the partners willing to work together. And organizations like iPlus, GDF, Global Fund, PEPFAR, they played such crucial role in ensuring that there was that understanding that the product doesn't need to sit in the warehouse, it needs to be in the consumer's hand. And I think that ability to understand that across these organizations, including, of course, MOHs, I think was just really incredible.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us on the Red Couch. I am your host, Makaita Gombe.